And we're live. Welcome back, everybody, to a new episode of the Wheelie Podcast. I'm your host, Micah Toll, and I'm joined again by Electrek Seth Weintraub. How's it going, Seth?
I'm good.
Awesome. And just a extra note for today, we are sponsored on this episode by Cycrown, an electric cycling specialist focused on growing a community of e-bike enthusiasts around the globe. For limited time, you can take advantage of Cycrown's online store Prime Day and get an additional 5% off all items. More on that later in the episode, though. For now, we have got a pile of new stories to cover. Everything from new electric bikes, from some new brands you might not think of in the e-bike space like DJI. We've got some new e-bike legislation. There's been a e-bike speed limit passed in one town in the US. We've got some reviews to cover. Onewheel's got a new board, and Gogoro's getting some big money from oil sources. So a lot of different interesting stories. But where are we going to start today, Seth?
All right. Crowdfunding gone wrong. Customer sues Delfast for e-bike non-delivery and wins.
Yeah, this is surprising in a few ways. So, first of all, a little background. Delfast is an electric bike company. They've been around for many years. They're based in Ukraine, and they've normally done really high-powered bikes. But a couple years ago, they launched what is called the Delfast California. It's more of a light moped style bike, kind of a neat, unique design. If you're watching the video feed here with us, you can see it's a pretty cool looking bike. But unfortunately, after they launched this, which was done through an Indiegogo campaign, it seems like they never delivered any of the bikes. And so at least one of the people who backed this campaign on Indiegogo and didn't get his bike for over a year eventually ended up suing in New York court. And when Delfast basically tried to make the claim that they weren't really selling e-bikes, rather they were running a crowdfunding campaign, and customers were just sort of donating to the company in hopes of receiving a bike. The judge basically said, like, no, that's not going to fly. You owe this gentleman $2,000 back, plus I think like $100 in court fees. So impressively, someone actually sued for not getting their crowdfunding project delivered, and they won. Now, that's just the beginning of the battle, because unfortunately they've sort of been ghosted by Delfast ever since, and beforehand, actually. So they haven't actually received any funds. We've reached out to Delfast to see if they would provide any comment. We have not heard back in the 2 weeks or so since we posted this. And so and we reached out before publishing it as well. So we don't have any information from Delfast. They haven't paid this yet, but at least there is now a court order for at least one of the customers from this campaign saying, you got to pay this guy back. Now, this is a bit of a different situation. For one, Delfast is a established, real electric bike company. It's not one of these sort of like fly-by-night, brand new situations. We actually covered the original crowdfunding campaign because it met both of our two stipulations for crowdfunding coverage, that it's not a brand new company, and that they have a track record of having successfully delivered bikes before. So they, check both boxes, but they still didn't come through. The other thing is that because they're a Ukrainian company, there obviously has been some serious disruptions in their operations. However, it does seem like they've continued to build and supply other bikes in their model line. So it's not that they've gone out of business or that they're not operating. It does seem like they're operating even throughout the war. They just didn't follow through with this campaign, it would appear. So we don't have any follow-up yet, but hopefully this gets a happy ending to this story.
Yeah, I mean, I feel particularly kind of involved since we did cover Delfast quite a bit. They did produce some, interesting spec bikes. They were, often high powered with insanely big batteries. I think they had set a world record at one point for the longest range e-bike or something like that. I mean, obviously publicity stunt. You can just load up a bike with batteries and drive that for days or weeks. But yeah, I met the CEO. I think you met the CEO at one point or another.
I actually haven't, but
Okay.
would love to at some point.
I had, I think, lunch with him in New York at one point. So, I don't know if a story came out of that, but I did have a Delfast bike at one point to review, and there were some problems with it, and so I don't think I ever posted anything about it. But yeah, it's a sad state of affairs. I mean, I can't even imagine, like, so there's the global e-bike kind of reckoning right now, where a lot of e-bike companies are having some issues. Um, we've talked about Cake, which is a Swedish brand that went into bankruptcy and is now coming out of bankruptcy. We've talked about Van Move, and there's countless others that are either going out of business or scaling back quite a bit. And then you add the whole Ukraine situation. I don't know how involved or how much of their bike company is in Ukraine, or I'm sure they're built in Asia, probably China. But I feel like a little bit. I don't want to say guilty, but I feel a little bit like involved, because we have covered some of Delfast exploits in the past. So I think it's important that we also cover like this aspect of whatever's happening with the company. So that's that part of the risk of doing these things with companies that aren't necessarily on firm footing. But hopefully, as you say, things turn out better.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's move on. The car-free U.S. town that just passed speed limits on electric bikes.
Yeah, so this is Mackinac Island in Michigan. Am I saying that right?
Yep.
Mackinac, something like that. And so this is a really interesting island. If anyone's familiar with it, you'll know there's no cars allowed on the island, no motor vehicles at all, with the exception of like police and an ambulance and that sort of thing. But there's no private vehicles. And so horses and walking and bicycles are sort of the main ways to get around the island. It's not very big, it's only like 4 miles or something. But over the last few years, electric bicycles have become very popular. And the town has had some issues with this, especially when, they're basically the most powerful, fastest vehicle on the entire island. And so they recently passed a couple different speed limits in the town. The first is a general e-bike speed limit of 15 miles per hour. And the second is in the business district, which is like the downtown, where e-bikes are limited to just 10 miles per hour. And these are significantly under the existing e-bike laws in the US. So if you're familiar with the class system, e-bikes are either limited to 20 miles per hour in class 1 or 2, or 28 miles per hour in class 3. So you can imagine that there had been some pretty fast e-bikes cruising around. However, I should note that before this new bill passed, the e-bikes on Mackinac Island were limited to class 1. So we're talking only 20 miles an hour. Whether or not people, respected that or not, especially considering how few e-bikes in the US are class 1 without throttle, remains to be seen. But at least moving forward now, not only do e-bikes need to be without a throttle class 1, but they can't go faster than 10 to 15 miles per hour, which, if you ask me, is a very tricky thing to police, because basically all electric bikes in the US will go faster than that. Very few are limited to the European level, 15 miles per hour, 25 kilometers per hour. And so you're kind of in like the car situation where, you can go 100 miles an hour, but you're only supposed to go 60 kind of thing. So I don't know how they're going to police that unless they have cops on e-bikes as well.
Yeah, and very slow radar detector. I don't even think they work that low, and they probably don't work on bikes either. Yeah, it's this is one of those situations where it's like, oh, okay, like I don't know what they're gonna do to keep these people going slow. I'm sure there'll be like cops going like this, and a lot of hand waving, but um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe there's like an urban speed limit that can extend to busy areas or something. But yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know.
It seems a bit, I mean, it just seems like one of these backlash things that wasn't fully thought out. I mean, I get the idea, right? Like you
Right.
don't want people running over, pedestrians. Like
For sure.
I get it. It's, there's definitely a basis for this, but I just don't know how this is enforceable. I don't, I mean, I think sort of making separate areas perhaps, or I don't know, there's got to be a better way than creating this unenforceable law that most people aren't even going to understand, like
Yep.
it's, but then again, Mackinac Island is a very unique place. So I'm sure they've got, their hands full trying to figure out something that's going to work with their unique culture of non-motorized vehicles.
Yeah, I mean, there's other places like it, like in New York, on Long Island, there's Fire Island, and which is basically golf carts, or you can pick. I'm sure there's a bunch of places in Florida like that, the villages that just have golf carts mostly. So maybe there's a different, you know, situation for e-bikes in places that kind of live on golf carts and very other slow vehicles.
Yeah,
But
well, the only thing I know for sure is I guess Electrek's gonna have to take a vacation to go check this out.
yep, for sure. But not to the villages. We're going to Fire Island.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Drone company DJI, which there's a whole other world of commentary on their existence in the U.S. They unveiled a new electric bike brand, Amflow.
Yeah, this is like just totally out of left field. So, like, if you know DJI, you know them probably from drones, maybe from cameras a little bit, but definitely not from electric bicycles. But they just launched this entire e bike drive system that the centerpiece is what they're calling the DJI Avinox electric motor. So, it's a mid drive system. They've got batteries as part of it. They've got controllers. I think it's a wireless controller, a display. So, like if you're familiar with like a Bosch or a Broza or sort of like the entire e-bike system like that, that's what DJI has created here. And they're decently impressive, these parts. I mean, we're talking either a 6 or 800 watt hour battery, so quite large battery. Um, it's a pretty darn light system. I think the battery itself weighs like 2.9 kilos. The motor, let's see where the power rating is. I'm guessing they're going to end up with 250 watts here, or at least a
Yeah,
250 watt sticker.
right. But
Oh,
it's
here it
a
is. Yeah, the 850. Yeah.
but it
So yeah, it
thousand
looks like the
watts is probably, so it's a kilowatt. Boost mode, which lasts all day, probably. But
yeah, exactly. So just like those European motors that say 250, but people are like climbing up the side of a mountain with them. This is a similar situation probably in that, they tell you that it's 105 Newton meters, so it's, super powerful. It's a lot of torque, but they put the 250 watt sticker on it to keep it legal. Um, we don't know too much more about the actual bike or bikes this is going to land on. It seems like DJI is opening a bike brand called Amflow, or they are sort of incubating it as they described it. So it might not necessarily be like DJI's bike brand, but they're bringing it up within their company as like a daughter company or something like that. Um, and we don't exactly know when these are going to come out either. We've heard later in 2024. So, there's a lot of details that we don't know. Really, the only thing we know are the tech specs on the drive system, because that seems like that is where DJI's sort of expertise has been applied here. With all of their experience in lightweight motors, in creating something with like a high power to weight ratio, with speed controllers, even batteries. Like it seems like they came in with a lot of knowledge that you might not think at first, like how does a drone company apply to e-bikes, but really a lot of these parts are quite similar, just scaled up. So it does make sense that they were able to take a lot of that expertise and apply it. Now this is going to be an electric mountain bike only, so we don't see them applying this on hybrid bikes, on commuters, on cruisers, or anything like that. At least not out of the get go. I wouldn't be surprised to see that in the future, but it seems like they're really starting with that like premium full suspension, high end electric mountain bike market for now. Something that I'm sure Seth would like to take to the slopes in the summer to test out.
For sure. So very impressive. The specs on this. It's we like to see stuff that's not just more and more power. Obviously, this I don't know if it bears a resemblance, but it kind of felt a little Bafang-y to me. Obviously, Bafang is another brand in China that makes motors, mid-drive motors, and I was also impressed that they also went with the fast charging of the battery. So that's something else that DJI kind of prides itself in its drones. I believe you can charge the battery from 0 to 75%, they said, in about an hour, 1.5 hours. Yeah. So fast charging is also impressive. Um, Not that that's a typical use case or anything, but it's just nice that somebody's thinking about this stuff. Usually, I mean, a 500-watt fast charger is impressive. So it's good to see them kind of innovating. Innovation anywhere is obviously good. We'd be remiss not to discuss that, DJI is basically on the precipice of being banned in the US for its drones. So I don't know if this part of the company would also be banned, or if it's going to find its way into other stuff or whatever. I mean, the ban is based on the belief that any Chinese company is going to have to relinquish control of itself to the CCP. If the government and the CCP decides, like, hey, we want your data, we want to track something in the US, we need access to your systems, which DJI really has no control over, obviously. So they're kind of stuck because they operate out of China, and China has these rules, and the US has its territorial integrity to maintain. So it is what it is. I'm not sure if the bike brand will escape that. Like, I don't know that the cameras are going to get banned, or is it just drones?
So that's the thing. Like like DJI is being specifically targeted, right? Like it's not like every Chinese company, like Bafang isn't going to be like swept up in this, right?
I don't think so, but Autel also is which makes drones and also other auto parts, is getting swept up into this as well. Depending on which legislation passes, it's very complicated right now. And like, is it going to affect current products, or it's all very theoretical at this point? It seems like it's going to happen. It just like, what is it going to look like? Is your current DJI drone going to be part of that? What are first responders who have drones, like, what are they going to use? Are they going to all go to Skydio or what? Like, so a lot of questions remain to be answered. I think there's probably going to be some sort of like back and forth, or theoretically DJI could establish a US based subsidiary that has whatever. I mean, this is all part like TikTok. So we don't know what this is going to look like from a political perspective. These are cool parts we're excited about. Hopefully they see their way into e-bikes that push the envelope forward. I mean, the whole Avinox system reminds me a bit of Bosch. It's like if Bafang went to a Bosch model kind of thing. They could have more control over the battery charging. They could have more control over the controller and everything like that. So we like to see it. We just there's a lot of questions that remain to be answered.
Yeah, I need to do some reading on drone DJ and get up to speed on all that DJI legislation.
Yeah,
that's rough.
if you want to get into that, drone DJ is the place to go. All right, we should address a comment in the comment section right now from Darak1212. I just wanted to say, love the work y'all do. Learn to make battery packs with your DIY book. I'm assuming he's referring to your book and not my non-existent book. Micah's book. Should go get it if you haven't already. I made my own solar generator with it, 1.7 kilowatt hours, 3 kilowatts. Placed an order for an Electrek Express 750. Excited. So great to hear. that. If you guys
Yeah,
have any questions or comments, throw it down there, and we'll try to get to it by the end of the show.
definitely.
And we'll move on to the Tank G100 review. This epic thing is the most motorcycle e-bike I've tested yet.
Yeah, we often joke about these electric bikes that end up being a little more on the motorcycle end of the spectrum, but this one is like the epitome of a motorcycle in bike form. Like they don't even try to hide it. The battery is literally shaped like an old school gas tank on a motorcycle. It goes like I got it up to 34 miles an hour. They claim 38. Maybe they had someone lighter than me on it doing that, like a 12-year-old girl. But I could only get to 34, but that's a lot for an electric bicycle. And I know a lot of people are going to say like it's not even a bicycle at this point. And normally I have some pushback to that, but on this model, like I can meet you most of the way there because this is barely considered an electric bicycle anymore. Now it is really fun. It's not like super high end. I mean, it's fast, it's powerful, but at the same time, like you're doing light motorcycle speeds on basic generic bike parts. So you got to kind of keep that in mind. There's like a whole, risk equation going on in the back of your head that like,
I know
this
that
is
feeling.
not good suspension. Yeah. Like, that derailleurs, like, the bottom tier Shimano derailleur. The suspension is like, it exists, but it's not great. Like I would not want to get launched on a pothole kind of thing.
Talk to me
But
about
as long as
brakes.
the brakes are okay. They're DY Island hydraulics, so they're kind of like an off-brand hydraulic brake. They're not bad. They're better than cheap mechanical brakes, but I would think ahead a little bit when you're stopping from 34 miles an hour, but
Yeah.
they're not bad.
Okay.
I forgot it weirdly has folding pedals. I'm not sure
Weird.
why because nothing else folds on it.
No, and
It might have
that
been an
does not look
afterthought.
portable at all.
Yeah. It's I think sometimes companies put folding pedals on bikes just so they fit in a smaller box.
Oh,
Though I don't think the pedals come installed.
right.
I don't know. There's some weird decisions. It does though. If you're watching the video here with us, have two batteries, which is kind of cool. So it's a total of about 48 volt, 38 amp hours, I think. So it's a little over 1.5 kilowatt hours of capacity, almost 2 kilowatt hours. So, you can go pretty darn far. But when you've got this much power, 1,000 watt continuous, and you've got a bike that goes this fast, you're going to be draining the batteries quickly. So it is important that you have a big battery. Otherwise, you're just not going to have a very long ride. And they do offer a second model with this like USA colorway. And so
Does
I
it
had a
come
little
with the
fun
outfit?
here. No, that was an Amazon special.
Okay.
I invested in the outfit for the video.
Okay.
Yeah.
Worth it.
Um, totally worth it. Would do it again. It's a little bit less dramatic without the music, but you guys can go check out that review for the America music. But yeah, basically it's a really interesting bike because it just goes like full bore motorcycle. It doesn't pretend to be a little bit of both. But I would say that you got to go easy and not push this bike on like crazy terrain or anything like that, just because it doesn't have the kind of components that you would see in anything that was really designed to be street legal at 34 35 miles an hour, that sort of thing. So don't go like breaking the fork off and then saying Micah said it was great, because I definitely did not say that. I said it was fun, but it's here for a good time, not a long time.
Quality, quantity. So I have some questions. First of
I
all,
bet.
it's nice to see a little area down at the bottom for storage. But I have to wonder, with all those batteries so high up, does that affect the turning and usually you want to have as much of your weight as low as possible, and this is like quite high. Does it affect the ride experience at all?
It does, but I will say that not to the degree that I think most people suspect it will. Like I saw a lot of comments that were like, "You won't be able to turn that thing." Like it turns fine, right?
Okay.
Like the other thing though is that the fork is so tall that you're kind of leaning back almost chopper like, and so part of the like strange feel to it comes from that, and it gives
Hmm.
it more of that motorcycle feel. and lastly, like because it already feels like a motorcycle, you're kind of expecting that higher weight. Like
Okay.
if you're used to riding like a, you know, like a 21 speed fitness bike, it's going to feel super heavy. But if you kind of go from bike to bike and you're used to riding motorcycles or like Vespa scooters, then I don't think the weight will shock you. Especially because it's like, yeah, the center of gravity is a bit higher, but it doesn't it doesn't have the effect that I think a lot of people think, or the magnitude of that effect.
And so I think you told us the specs of the battery. What about the controller and the motor? What's the 48 volt? How many amps?
Yeah, so they claim 1,000 watt continuous, so it's about, what was that, 22 or 23 amps, but they say 2,000 watts peak, so talking something like 45 amp peak controller probably. The interesting thing though is that, so it'll get up to 20 pretty well, but from like the low 20s to the low 30s, the acceleration takes kind of a long time.
Hmm.
So and I mean that is kind of common when there's not like a electronic speed limit on the motors. Like it's just going to whatever top speed it'll natively hit, and the motors just don't have as much torque at that high end. It's kind of the opposite of like a gas engine situation. So it is normal to not have that same acceleration at the higher end, but it's kind of more noticeable on this bike for some reason. I don't know if it's the extra weight. I don't know if you know, the power is programmed to peter out at the higher end, but it just feels like, you know, you're not rushing up to that top speed. You're getting to modest speeds, and then you got to like lean on it for a while.
All right. Yeah. 107-pound weight. That's quite heavy. 130 miles of range. That's, I mean, huge battery, but still probably a little optimistic. Um, yeah. I mean, I guess 2,000 watt peak is probably what you need to get to the mid 30s miles per hour. Um, so yeah, I mean, it all makes sense. We've seen other 30 something mile per hour bikes in this kind of realm. The Hyper Scorpion, Hyper Scrambler from Juiced comes to mind. The Aerial, the Grizzly, or
Yeah, that one was two motor, but yeah.
yeah, two motors. And yeah, I thought it was interesting that they chose one big motor instead of two motors here. But yeah, there's other stuff in this space, maybe not shaped exactly like this. So we know from basically Super 73's whole existence that aesthetics are a huge part of why people buy bikes and what they represent to people, for better or worse sometimes. But this certainly is a looker. Like, this bike definitely looks like something interesting, and the fact that it goes fast, that's part of the whole thing. But legal nowhere. Um, so keep that in mind. I do like the speedometer on this one.
Yeah, it's got a nice display. I mean, I'm sure it's on many things. I doubt they developed it, but it's certainly very nice. They do have their Happy Run logo burned into it, so they at least invested somewhat in having it customized for them. The one thing we didn't discuss though is the price, which I believe is $1,600, maybe 1,700.
Oh,
Yeah, $1,700. And
that's
so
low.
yeah, like compared to a Super 73, I mean that's half of like the higher end Super 73s,
Right.
and it's still a good bit below the higher juiced, like, you know, Hyper Scorpions or Hyper Scramblers. Of course, like you know, with the juiced bikes, I mean those feel more solid. You know, they feel like a motor vehicle as opposed
Right.
to this that feels like it's bicycle parts kind of thing. So you can feel the difference in a $1,700 motorcycle bike compared to like a $3,000 motorcycle bike. But for those that don't have Super 73 money, this does get you the speed and the looks and the power. It's just you give up some quality there for sure.
Yeah, and you mentioned the pedals. That was a weird decision. Like, aesthetically and functionally, seems, yeah, questionable. But overall, like, you know what you're getting here. If you're considering a Super 73 and don't have the money to spend, but still want kind of the mid 30s top speed, and you don't live on with it any big potholes around, maybe this makes sense.
Yep. Or you know where all the potholes are.
Right. You want to make sure not to hit that with the suspension and at speed. All right, let's move on. Oh, this is something I want to get involved with. Industry Rebel Onewheel launches a premium off-road electric board.
Yeah, so Onewheel, if you're not familiar, just the basic description, it's a form of electric skateboard, though it doesn't look like a normal skateboard. Instead of four skateboard wheels, you've got one big, like riding lawnmower wheel sized wheel in the middle of the board. And so it's self-balancing like, an old school Segway, but you mount it and kind of ride it more like a skateboard in that side stance. They've been around for what, over a decade now, at least, right?
Yep.
And there's just like a huge following. They're one of these like cult classic type vehicles. They're really the only ones making something like this outside of a few like cheap knockoffs. And they've just got like a huge fan base. So they just came out with a new version of their top of the line board. This is the GTS Rally, and it's optimized for off road riding. You could always ride Onewheels off road because they've got a pretty big tire there, but this one has a few advancements. For one, they actually shrunk the physical size of the motor. And what that allows is a bigger tire, or at least more air volume in the tire. So you're getting a lot more cushion there. It's not like real suspension, but a pneumatic tire is going to go a long way off road. And so with this Rally Edition, you're better able to hit a lot of those obstacles. They shared some pictures of people like jumping tree stumps and stuff, which seems like you got to have some pretty good riding skills to hit that kind of stuff. But definitely, optimized for that kind of riding. Now, this is not going to be cheap. The top of the line version here is priced at $3,500. So a significant outlay because this is a very unique product. Future Motion put a lot of investment, a lot of R&D in developing a unique vehicle, and that doesn't come cheap. However, if you want the previous top of the line model, they have knocked off, I think, $300 from the price now that they've got the new GTS Rally. So if you want the original GTS, you can get it for $300 off, which I think is like the low 3,000, something like that. So silver lining there, I guess, in the price range. But Seth, you think you could go ripping around the forest in this?
Yeah. So my neighbor Kay has his whole family rides these things around, and it's like kind of awesome because like you see them coming through the woods, and I'm like, what, like on basically a skateboard. So I've now become super interested in these, and he's my age, so I'm like, hey, if he can do it and not hurt himself, I can do it. He's also a big snowboarder, so like we do a lot of the same stuff. Um, so now I'm interested in one. Maybe I'll give Onewheel folks a call and see if they can let me, as a 50-year-old, review one of these. If I can do it, why can't So definitely interested in trying this thing out. I did try his Onewheel, and I was like strangely easy. I obviously watch him and his kids do it, and I'm always like, oh, that seems like they seem like they're not scared and they're doing fine. And then my son did it, and then I did it, and I was like, oh, okay, this is something. This is a way to get around. Also, we're going to Paris for the Olympics, and having something like this around Paris might be interesting. I know my son would love to have something like this, although I don't know that would be very safe in Paris. But anyway, lots of ideas and opportunities here. He certainly uses Onewheel as like transportation, like real transportation. So, that's kind of
Your
what
son or your neighbor?
my neighbor, yeah. So yeah, let's reach out to Onewheel and see if we can get a 50-year-old on one of these to show that anybody could do it. Although
Yeah,
the
for sure.
price is a little bit prohibitive for a lot of people, I imagine. All right, let's move on. Last story. BP's Castrol invests $50 million in Gogoro, leading EV battery swapping provider.
Yeah, this is a huge day for Gogoro. This is a massive investment. It started with a 25 million round with a follow-up 25 million coming. But this is from Castrol, one of BP's daughter companies, I guess. And it's going to go towards 5% of Gogoro's outstanding ordinary shares. So you can do some math there and figure out that Gogoro's worth a lot of money, though they're publicly traded on the NASDAQ. So I guess you can just look that up as well. But basically, this is, if not the biggest, then one of the biggest investments in Gogoro, and it's likely going to significantly help them expand in what has already been a huge growth period for them. If you're not familiar with Gogoro, they're the basically the de facto standard in battery swapping for light electric vehicles, mostly scooters, seated Vespa style scooters. So there are other companies out there that make battery swapping standards, like any good standard. There's 30 of them, kind of thing. Um, but
uh,
Gogoro's size means that they're sort of like the de facto leader here. They have, I think it's close to 2 million batteries produced. They do something like a 500,000 battery swaps a day, and I think they're at um, almost a billion battery swaps, something like that. I don't know. The numbers are just like mind-boggling how big and how spread out these things are. They're in, I want to say, like 8 or 9 different countries at this point. They've really expanded around Asia. People are always asking me, when are they coming to Europe? When are they coming to North America? Um, the first one seems to be like maybe at some point. The second one is don't hold your breath for like the 3 scooter riders in the US. I don't think they're going to be getting
weren't they? They were
GoGo.
in Berlin, I thought, weren't they, or
Well,
Europe?
they're yes, but with a partnership with Coop,
All
the
right.
scooter sharing service. Yeah, so they technically were in Berlin, but it wasn't like Gogoro was operating. It was that a battery or a scooter sharing service bought their scooters and ran them there. But the cool thing about Gogoro is that, like, yes, while they do make electric scooters and they're actually really cool, I have one as my daily driver. They're not really a scooter company. They're really a battery company that makes scooters as something to fit their batteries. But now there's like a dozen different OEMs that produce vehicles to fit Gogoro's batteries. Like Yamaha makes scooters that fit Gogoro batteries. Aeon does, and they're expanding to different types of vehicles. So we've seen like electric 3-wheelers that can fit 2 or 4 Gogoro batteries. We've seen prototypes of like basically neighborhood electric vehicles, like sort of glorified golf carts that can take Gogoro batteries. And so this level of investment from Castrol could just like jumpstart a lot of this expansion that we've already started seeing. Whenever I see like big oil getting into these, electric vehicle companies, it always feels like, all right, yeah, like I get it. You need to, shift to green alternatives. That's great, but like it feels like a little bit like kind of oily money to me. But I guess at the end of the day, like money's money, and it's better they put it in green things than keep pumping oil, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess as long as they don't get a controlling interest in the company and tank it or something like that, that's fine that they're throwing money at it. Um, I agree. Like I like Gogoro's model. Like don't compete on the actual scooters. Just build the charging network. Have they ever considered letting other companies build Gogoro compatible batteries? Because I feel like that would be good for the ecosystem. Like if everybody could coalesce around one standard for batteries, that would be amazing. But I also wonder, well, Gogoro invented all this technology. They would, I'm sure, want a fee for letting other companies, make their format or their standard or whatever. Like, what's the long game here?
Yeah, definitely. So I'd be surprised if they let other companies produce the batteries, at least outside of a partnership.
Mhm.
I know that when they went into India, there's like a big domestic manufacturing component there. I'm not sure if it's also batteries or if it's just domestic manufacturing of scooters in India, because Gogoro's got like an incredible battery manufacturing facility of their own. I was there a few months ago. It's like totally automated. Human hands don't touch the batteries at all. It's really kind of impressive how like just robots start with bare cells and end up with batteries. So that would be kind of hard for other companies to duplicate, I think. And Gogoro has such a a strong like company culture about like quality and precision, which all I think comes back to the CEO Horace Luke, who like is a designer by trade, comes from the mobile phone industry. That I think it'd be hard for them to relinquish that kind of control and let other people build batteries that they can't be sure are built to their standard. And then there's the the business aspect where I think they really want to own those batteries and or at least the battery model kind of thing. So I wouldn't rule it out in the future entirely, but I think for now they really want to be like the battery company or the broader energy company behind all this.
Yeah, it's just like I would love to see this become the standard for not just bikes, but like it would be great if it became economical enough to also be like, lawn equipment, weed eaters, bicycles to scooters to everything in between. Like it would just be nice to have one big standard for, and obviously like there has to be competition in the market. And if Gogoro owns like the standard, it's going to be, a monopoly and stuff like that. But like, my God, there's like, for power tools and equipment, like, lawnmowers, there's like 17 different standards. And some of these companies even take like the same battery and, make a groove in it or something so that,
Yeah.
the cobalt doesn't work with the green works or, it's just so frustrating that there's, you know, you get kind of islanded with like you buy one greenworks thing and you're like, oh, I have to buy greenworks stuff from now on so the batteries are interchangeable. And then it's just, man, I wish like I don't want governments to get involved with too much stuff, but like I kind of wish there would be something where we like let's create a standard, everybody gets around it. You can move batteries from scooters to to bikes to lawnmowers to weed whackers. So I don't know. I just wish Gogoro could kind of become that standard, or anybody else become that standard for that matter.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Gogoro is so far on the way to becoming it just because there's no one really in second place. But I mean, like you said, there is an issue with, one company having that monopoly. So I'm not sure what the right answer is. It seems like Gogoro is quite benevolent at this point. So, but they are a for-profit company. So who knows? Maybe one day everything is run on Gogoro batteries and suddenly they're worth their weight in gold.
Exactly. All right, let's do our sponsor read for today. Today's episode is sponsored by Cycrown, an electric cycling specialist focused on promoting the e-bike traveling lifestyle while helping grow a community of enthusiasts around the globe. With its warehouses in the US and Canada, Cycrown offers fast delivery of its growing library of electric bikes and adjacent accessories. Cycrown works daily to deliver the highest quality and most affordable e-bikes on the market to people of all disciplines, building a community around its beloved customers. That portfolio now includes the new Sci Hunter e-bike. This Class 5, didn't know there was a Class 5, all-terrain bike has been tailored for any adventure that thanks to a peak 1,000-watt motor that can reach a top speed of 28 miles per hour and a dual battery system that can deliver over 150 miles of range. The Psych Hunter comes with Cycrown's 2-year warranty, and the company gives you 30 days to return or exchange your e-bike. For a limited time, take advantage of Cycrown's online store Prime Day and enjoy an additional 5% off all items. This offer can be combined with an additional $150 discount for every $17.99 spent. Learn more at cycrown.com. That's CYCROWN.com. Thanks to Cycrown for sponsoring.
Yeah, I got to look up Class 5 bikes now.
Yep, it's got to be something interesting.
It's like cranking your amp to 11.
Exactly. All right, we kind of talked about some of the comments, but we'll hit some more here. Russell Zahner says Taiwan is not huge. That would never work in the U.S. Oh, I love these. They never work in the U.S. people. There would be a standard, and whoever didn't comply would be liable for injury damages. Certification program. Sorry, I should bring this up on the.
So regarding that, I would just say, at least on the size component, one thing that Gogoro does when they move into new countries is they usually move into new cities, not entire countries. So they find like a city that has the right density that would work. for example, like I have a Gogoro scooter because I live in Tel Aviv, and they didn't like open up in all of Israel. They went to basically like the largest metropolis and said, let's start here. And so I could see, in New York or San Francisco or those kinds of places where Gogoro system could work as long as it's in a specific area with a lot of two-wheeled commuters. But yeah, trying to like, fit it across the whole US would not work in one fell swoop.
Yeah. So we should probably talk about this a little bit because I don't quite understand. Like, for instance, I'm trying to think. The Braun Oral B toothbrush has, fake Oral B toothbrush heads you can buy because you can make them. They're pretty easy. Would it be possible for another company to say, let's look at Gogoro's battery and recreate it, and would it work in the Gogoro things, or is there like a lot of like tech in the batteries that prevent other companies from creating batteries?
Yeah, definitely the tech side. So
Okay.
a lot of the Gogoro people come from like the mobile phone industry. So
Ooh,
there's so much more tech baked into this than you would think. There have been some companies that have sort of knocked off Gogoro batteries, at least in the physical design, but they
shape.
won't. Yeah, they won't do like the handshake. And if anything, it's amazing how wireless everything is. Like when you roll up to the Gogoro swap station, you
Hmm.
don't swipe a card or anything. Just you physically being close to it as you roll up, it recognizes you
Your
based
bike.
on the batteries. Yeah.
Okay.
Not even your bike. It recognizes the batteries that are in your
Oh,
bike. And those batteries tell it whose bike
is that
they're in.
Bluetooth or NFC or?
I'm not sure.
Okay, interesting. That's really cool. And I
Yeah.
imagine it also knows like the charge, and it can kind of think ahead about that kind of stuff. That's really cool.
Yeah,
Um,
there's just like a ton of like big data that goes into that. Even like down to they know sort of like how you ride. So like if there's like a grandma that doesn't, accelerate very hard, she'll be given the batteries are a little bit older and maybe not like quite as powerful. Or if there's a rider who like just always floors it, he'll get like the newer, like more punchy batteries, that kind of thing.
Interesting.
And it's all just like information kind of like passed through the batteries.
That's super cool. I did not know that, but obviously that's that's I guess that's one of the reasons why Gogoro is so far ahead of everybody else. And we should say what NIU has kind of a battery swap, and there's some other
Um,
companies.
I don't think they have their own battery swap. They have their own battery like design.
Hmm.
Kimco has a battery
Oh,
swap. A
Kimco,
few
that's right.
others, yeah, have battery swaps. Kimco is probably like the closest, at least in form, to Gogoro swapping, but
Hmm.
they're not like they're not really near it yet.
Okay. All right, we should go on. Russell has a lot more to say here. A certification program would be nice to have. Someone is putting up home chargers to the curb. That hasn't been talked about yet. I think that's on Kickstarter right now. The legal aspect, one company cannot hold a monopoly, especially on a service. Taiwan is also set up for this type of manufacturing. One manufacturer can't supply the whole US for this much hardware. The batteries are connected. Wait, is this the guy that went to the factory? Pretty sure they're using NFC for the loading, unloading of the batteries. But
That is me. Yes.
Wi-Fi is appropriate for the mesh connectivity. All right. I,
Well,
I,
thank you, Russell. Always
yep.
glad to have you.
Yep.
And I think that's the end of the comments, right?
Yep.
All right, awesome. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll be back here in another 2 weeks for another episode of the Wheelie Podcast. We'll see you next time, everyone.